As the last trains of the evening carry their final passengers home, Tokyo begins its gentle transformation. The frenetic energy of the day slowly dissipates like mist rising from the Sumida River, leaving behind a different city altogether, one that breathes with a quieter rhythm, one that few tourists ever truly witness. This is Tokyo after midnight, a metropolis in repose, a landscape of soft shadows and gentle illumination, where time seems to flow like honey, sweet and unhurried. The neon signs still glow, but their light feels different now, softer somehow, more contemplative, as if they too have lowered their voices in respect for the night. Raindrops begin to fall, not in a torrent, but in a gentle, almost musical patter that creates a natural symphony against the urban backdrop. Each droplet catches the colored light as it falls, transforming the ordinary pavement into a canvas of liquid jewels, ruby red, sapphire blue, emerald green, all shimmering in perfect stillness. In Shinjuku, where millions tread during daylight hours, the wide avenues now stretch empty and inviting, like arms opening to embrace the night. The famous crossing at Shibuya, normally a churning sea of humanity, now stands in serene emptiness, its traffic signals changing from green to red and back again, a rhythm maintained for no one in particular, yet somehow comforting in its constancy. The rain continues its gentle percussion, creating ripples in puddles that reflect the surrounding lights in concentric circles of color. High above the city streets, the Tokyo Tower stands as a sentinel of orange and white light, its illumination a gentle beacon, visible from countless windows where the last of the wakeful citizens prepare for sleep. The tower doesn't demand attention now. It simply offers its presence as a familiar landmark in the night, a reminder that some things remain constant even as the city transforms around it. In an apartment somewhere in Nakano, a window is left slightly ajar, allowing the sounds of the night to filter in. The distant rumble of a late train, the soft whisper of tires on wet asphalt, the occasional melodic chime from a temple bell carried on the breeze. These sounds don't disturb. Rather, they form a lullaby for the sleeping city, a gentle reminder that life continues even in these quietest hours. The rain intensifies slightly, but never becomes harsh or threatening. Instead, it wraps the city in a blanket of white noise, a natural sound machine that masks the few remaining urban sounds. Droplets collect on the leaves of ginkgo trees that line certain boulevards, gathering weight until they fall with soft, irregular plops to join their brethren on the ground below. In these midnight hours, Tokyo's vastness seems somehow more intimate, as if the absence of crowds has allowed the city to reveal its true character, one of surprising tenderness. The concrete and glass that can seem so imposing during the day now appear almost protective, sheltering rather than confining. The city cradles its sleeping inhabitants, maintaining its vigil through the night hours with a parent's patient devotion. The clouds overhead move slowly, occasionally parting to reveal a star or two, though the city's glow makes true darkness impossible. This ambient light creates a perpetual twilight, a dreamy in-between state that blurs the boundaries between wakefulness and sleep, between reality and dream. It is in this gentle, liminal space that we begin our journey through Tokyo after midnight, a city transformed not by any dramatic change, but by the simple absence of hurry, by the permission it gives itself to simply be. As we drift through these quiet streets, we become aware of our own breathing slowing to match the city's restful pace. Our footsteps, should we choose to walk, fall softly on the wet pavement, adding their gentle rhythm to the night's subtle symphony. There is nowhere we need to be, no appointment we must keep. Time has loosened its grip, allowing us to experience each moment fully, to notice details that the daylight hours might rush past. The air carries the clean scent of rain, but also hints of other aromas. The lingering fragrance of incense from a neighborhood shrine, the faint sweetness of blossoms from a rooftop garden, the occasional wisp of steam from a late-night ramen shop where a single chef still tends his broth with meditative care. These scents mingle and separate as we move, creating an olfactory map of the sleeping city, telling stories without words. The rain continues its gentle cadence as we move deeper into the sleeping metropolis, following the meandering paths where light and shadow intertwine like old friends engaged in a slow, eternal dance. In the financial district of Marunouchi, the towering office buildings stand in dignified silence, their windows mostly dark, save for the occasional floor, where cleaning staff move like quiet ghosts, preparing the space for tomorrow's business. The rain transforms the wide avenues between these buildings into rivers of reflected light, long, unbroken stretches of liquid luminescence that ripple with each falling droplet. Along the outer gardens of the imperial palace, the ancient stones glisten with moisture, their surfaces polished by centuries of rain, just like tonight's. The palace itself remains in shadow, a darker presence against the night sky, its secrets kept safe behind walls that have witnessed the passing of empires. The moat surrounding these walls lies perfectly still, except for the gentle disturbance of raindrops, each creating expanding circles that intersect and overlap in patterns of mathematical perfection, too complex to analyze, yet somehow deeply satisfying to observe. In Ginza, the designer boutiques and department stores have closed their doors hours ago, but their display windows remain softly lit, creating small theaters of light where mannequins pose in frozen elegance, modeling dreams of beauty for an audience of none. The famous Ginza crossing, like its counterpart in Shibuya, breathes in the emptiness, the pavement still faintly warm from the day's foot traffic, now cooling slowly under the gentle rain. A digital billboard changes its display, the transition so gradual that it's almost imperceptible, a slow dissolve from one image to another that takes nearly a minute to complete. In the daytime, such subtlety would be lost in the rush, but in these midnight hours, it becomes a meditation on change itself, on the way one state flows into another without clear boundaries. The narrow alleyways of Golden Gai in Shinjuku, normally bustling with night owls seeking tiny bars and authentic experiences, now rest in near silence. The colorful lanterns still glow, casting pools of warm light onto the wet pavement, creating the impression of stepping stones across a dark stream. A single cat pads silently between these pools, its movements so fluid they seem almost choreographed, a dance of perfect efficiency and grace. Near the waterfront in Odaiba, the Rainbow Bridge stretches across Tokyo Bay, its reflection creating a perfect circle when combined with its image on the water's surface, a geometric mandala of light that pulses gently as small waves pass beneath. From certain angles, the bridge's illumination seems to merge with the stars above, making it difficult to discern where human creation ends and the cosmos begins. In residential Setagaya, the narrow streets between houses lie in comfortable darkness, punctuated only by the soft glow from occasional vending machines, those tireless sentinels of Japanese convenience that stand ready to serve at any hour. Their humming creates a barely perceptible background note, a technological lullaby that has become so familiar to residents that its absence would be more noticeable than its presence. The rain begins to ease slightly, transitioning from a steady patter to a gentle mist that hangs in the air, refracting the city lights into countless tiny prisms. This gossamer curtain of moisture softens all edges, blurring the boundaries between buildings, between earth and sky, between the tangible and the ephemeral. Through this veil, Tokyo takes on the quality of a watercolor painting still wet on the page, colors bleeding into one another in a beautiful imprecision. A train passes in the distance, its sound muffled by the rain and the city's sleeping presence. The rumble travels through the ground as much as through the air, a gentle vibration that speaks of journeys continuing even in these quiet hours, of connections maintained across the vast urban expanse. The train's windows form a ribbon of warm light that snakes through the darkness, carrying night workers home or early risers to their destinations, each passenger wrapped in their own thoughts, their own dreams. In a small park, tucked between office buildings, a sprinkler system activates on its midnight schedule, adding its artificial rain to the natural moisture. The overlapping sounds create a complex rhythm, a percussive interplay that might go unnoticed during the day, but now becomes a featured performance in the night's ongoing concert. Water droplets hang from the tips of leaves, gathering weight until they fall to join the growing collection of tiny pools on the ground below. As the midnight hour deepens, we find ourselves drawn to the ancient heart of Tokyo, where temples and shrines stand as islands of tradition in the sea of modernity. At Sensoji in Asakusa, the oldest temple in the city, the massive red lantern at the Kaminarimon gate glows with subdued intensity, its reflection doubling its presence in the rain-slicked pavement. The temple's main hall is closed to visitors now, but its spiritual presence remains undiminished, perhaps even enhanced by the quietude that surrounds it. The long shopping street leading to the temple, Nakamisedori, normally crowded with vendors and tourists, now stretches empty and dreamlike before us. The shuttered storefronts create a corridor of wooden textures, their grain made more pronounced by the gentle moisture that clings to every surface. Our footsteps echo softly as we walk, each sound cushioned by the damp air that wraps around us like a comfortable blanket. In the temple's outer gardens, stone lanterns stand in meditative stillness, their soft light creating pools of warm illumination in the misty darkness. A stone Buddha sits with eyes half closed, raindrops collecting on its smooth surface before running down in rivulets that might be mistaken for tears in the dim light. Not tears of sadness, but of compassionate connection to all living things caught in the cycle of existence. The 5-storied pagoda rises into the night sky, each level slightly smaller than the one below, creating a visual rhythm that draws the eye upward toward heaven. Its silhouette against the low clouds creates a scene that could belong to any century. The modern city falls away, and we might easily be walking in Edo period Japan, guided only by paper lanterns and the occasional glimpse of moonlight through parting clouds. At the nearby Shinto shrine of Asakusa Jinja, the vermilion torii gates form a series of thresholds between the mundane world and the sacred space beyond. In Shinto belief, these gates mark the transition from the ordinary to the divine, and in these quiet hours after midnight, that transition feels especially tangible. The boundary between worlds seems permeable somehow, as if the veil between the visible and invisible realms has thinned with the deepening night. The shrine's purification fountain continues its eternal flow, water pouring from bamboo spouts into a stone basin where it collects before overflowing into a hidden stream beneath. The sound of this water creates a constant, gentle background to the night's silence, a reminder of purification and renewal that continues whether witnessed or not. A single copper ladle rests on the stone edge, waiting for the next visitor to perform the ritual cleansing before approaching the main shrine. Across the city in Meiji Jingu, The massive torii gate at the entrance to the forest stands as a silent guardian. Made from thousand-year-old cypress trees, its imposing presence is softened by the night and the gentle rain that darkens the wood to a deeper hue. Beyond this threshold stretches a path through an artificial forest that feels anything but artificial in these hours. The trees creating a canopy that shelters the path from all but the occasional raindrop. This forest, planted by hand when the shrine was established, has grown into a self-sustaining ecosystem, a pocket of nature in the heart of the world's largest urban area. At night, the rustling of leaves and the occasional call of a nightbird create a soundscape entirely different from the urban symphony outside its boundaries. The air here smells of wet earth and green growing things, a primordial scent that triggers something deep in the human brain, something that remembers our origins among trees and open skies. The gravel path crunches softly underfoot, each step producing a sound like gentle static, a white noise that soothes rather than disturbs. The lanterns along this path are spaced far enough apart that we pass through alternating pools of soft light and gentle shadow, a rhythm that matches our walking pace as if designed specifically for nighttime contemplation. At the heart of this forest shrine, the main complex stands in dignified silence, its sweeping roof lines creating graceful curves against the night sky. A single priest moves through the inner courtyard, performing midnight rituals that have continued unbroken for centuries. His white robes catch the lantern light as he moves, creating the impression of a spirit gliding through the sacred space, tending to the invisible connections between this world and the next. The massive sake barrels displayed near the shrine, offerings from brewers across Japan, glisten with moisture in the soft light. Their wooden staves have expanded slightly with the humidity, tightening the bonds that hold them together, an unintentional metaphor for how shared spiritual practice strengthens the connections within a community, how tradition holds society together through the changing seasons of history. As we stand in this peaceful space, the sounds of the city seem impossibly distant, though we know they are just beyond the forest's edge. This temporal and spatial liminality creates a profound sense of being suspended between worlds, not fully in the modern city, yet not truly in the ancient past, not completely awake, yet not entirely in the realm of dreams. It is a space of perfect balance, of harmonious contradiction, where time itself seems to pool rather than flow. The clock approaches 1 in the morning as we drift toward one of Tokyo's countless train stations, perhaps Ueno or Tokyo Station itself, those massive transit hubs that process millions of commuters daily, but now stand in near emptiness, their vast concourses echoing with absence. The last trains have completed their runs for the night, and the first trains of morning are still hours away. This is the brief interval when Tokyo's circulatory system rests, when its metal arteries lie still and silent. The station's soaring ceilings, designed to accommodate crowds, now shelter only the occasional security guard making rounds, or a cleaning crew working with unhurried efficiency. Their footsteps echo in the cavernous space, each sound traveling farther than it would during the day, bouncing off marble floors and tiled walls before dissolving into the ambient hum of essential systems that never fully power down. The departure boards still glow with information, though now they display the first trains of tomorrow rather than the next imminent departure. The precise times, 5:03, 5:17, 5:22, promise the return of rhythm and purpose after the night's intermission. For now, though, the platforms wait in patient emptiness, their yellow safety lines vivid against the darker flooring, guiding no one. In the underground passages connecting different lines, the long corridors stretch into distance, their fluorescent lighting creating a dreamlike uniformity that makes it difficult to judge scale or distance. Without the usual crowds for reference, these spaces take on an almost surreal quality, utilitarian yet somehow transcendent in their emptiness, like De Chirico paintings come to life, where perspective and shadow create a metaphysical loneliness that isn't entirely unpleasant. A single vending machine hums in an alcove, its brightly lit display of beverages creating a small stage of illumination in the dimmer corridor. The bottles inside, teas, coffees, sports drinks in their familiar shapes and colors, wait in perfect rows, patient as meditating monks for the next customer who might not come for hours. The machine's soft operational sounds, the refrigeration unit cycling on and off, the occasional electronic adjustment, provide a technological counterpoint to the natural sounds of rain outside. On a distant platform, a solitary train rests between services, its doors open as if in mid-breath. Inside, the empty seats create patterns of color against the neutral flooring. Blues and greens and oranges depending on the line, each with its own chromatic identity. The handrails gleam dully under the reduced night lighting, polished by countless palms throughout the day. A forgotten newspaper rests on one seat, its pages slightly ruffled, as if still holding the shape of its last reader. In the driver's compartment at the front of this sleeping train, the control panel maintains its vigilant display of lights and indicators, a cockpit temporarily without its pilot. The windshield, curved and expansive, frames a view of empty tracks stretching into darkness, their parallel lines converging at a vanishing point that seems to promise journeys yet to come, connections yet to be made when the city wakes again. Outside the main stations, smaller neighborhood stops rest in even deeper quietude. Their modest platforms, often just a raised area alongside the tracks with a simple shelter overhead, embody the Japanese aesthetic of functional minimalism. Rain falls through the gaps in these shelters, creating patterns on the concrete that change constantly, yet seem somehow permanent, like the temporary art of a Zen garden being continuously redrawn by natural forces. At one such station, a single bicycle remains chained to the rack, perhaps forgotten by its owner or left intentionally until morning. Water beads on its seat and handlebars, each droplet containing a tiny, distorted reflection of the station lights, worlds within worlds, each complete in its miniature perfection. The tracks themselves take on a particular beauty in these quiet hours, their steel surfaces gleaming with moisture, creating perfect mirrors that double the sparse lights along their length. The gentle curve of rails as they approach a bend creates a visual poetry of function, a reminder that even the most utilitarian objects can possess an inherent grace when viewed with attentive eyes. In the distance, the sound of maintenance work can occasionally be heard, the night hours being the only time when certain essential repairs can be performed on this network that rarely rests. The sounds are not jarring, though. They come muffled through distance and rain, rhythmic clanks and the occasional call between workers creating a nocturnal industrial lullaby, a reminder of the human effort that maintains this complex system. A station master's office glows with soft light behind frosted glass, creating a lantern-like effect in the platform's dimness. Inside, perhaps, someone reviews tomorrow's schedules or completes the day's reports, maintaining the invisible administrative architecture that allows the visible transportation system to function with its famous precision. There is comfort in this continued presence, in knowing that even in the deepest night, someone remains awake and vigilant, preparing for the city's eventual awakening. As we stand on the empty platform, the sensation of being between moments stretches and expands. The last train is gone. The next train has not yet come. We exist in a perfect pocket of liminality, a breath between sentences in the city's ongoing narrative. The rain continues its gentle percussion on the station roof, a natural metronome marking time that, for these few hours, seems to have loosened its usual constraints. The rain has settled into a gentle, consistent presence as we leave the sleeping stations behind and venture once more into the open streets. The precipitation isn't heavy enough to require shelter, just substantial enough to maintain the glistening quality of every surface, transforming the ordinary city into a mirror world of reflections and doubled light. Each puddle becomes a portal to an inverted reality, a looking glass dimension where buildings grow downward and neon signs bloom like underwater flowers. In the entertainment district of Roppongi, the famous intersection reflects the surrounding buildings and signs in fractured perfection. The Tokyo Midtown complex, with its carefully orchestrated exterior lighting, creates a watercolor wash of blues and whites on the wet pavement, colors flowing into one another without distinct boundaries. A taxi passes occasionally, its tires making a soft, shushing sound on the wet asphalt, momentarily disrupting the reflected world before it reforms in the vehicle's wake. The glass facades of office towers create their own contributions to this nocturnal light show. There are hundreds of windows, most dark, some still illuminated, forming a pixelated pattern that the rain-slicked streets duplicate below. The effect creates a sense of symmetry that isn't quite perfect, the reflected version showing subtle distortions that make it more dream than reality, more impression than reproduction. In narrower streets, where traditional lanterns still hang outside restaurants and small bars, most closed now, though a few maintain their glow for the occasional late wanderer, the reflections take on a warmer quality. Reds and ambers predominate in these older districts, their wavelengths seeming to penetrate the water more deeply, creating pools of color that appear almost solid until disturbed by a falling droplet or passing breeze. Near the fashion district of Harajuku, a large puddle has formed at the base of a digital billboard. The advertisement changes every few minutes, transitioning so slowly between images that the change is almost imperceptible until suddenly one realizes that the scene is entirely different from what it was before. This gradual transformation is doubled in the puddle below, creating a quaternary relationship. The previous image above, its reflection below, gradually giving way to the new image and its corresponding reflection, all four states visible simultaneously during the transition. Along the tree-lined boulevard of Omotesando, often called Tokyo's Champs-Élysées, the designer boutiques stand in darkened elegance, their display windows still softly illuminated to showcase luxury goods to an audience of raindrops. The street itself has become a runway of light, the careful exterior illumination of each storefront creating distinct pools of brightness that overlap at their edges, forming a continuous pathway of luminescence reflected in the wet pavement. A single delivery truck moves slowly down this avenue, its headlights creating long cones of visibility that sweep across the wet surfaces, temporarily overpowering the more subtle lighting before moving on. The truck's passage leaves behind small waves in the larger puddles, setting the reflected world into gentle motion, buildings and signs swaying as if in a breeze that affects only this mirror dimension. In the financial district, the straight lines and sharp angles of modern architecture create a more geometric pattern of reflections, a rectilinear dreamscape of illuminated windows and corporate logos duplicated on the shining streets below. The rain continues its gentle fall, each droplet creating momentary rings in the puddles, perfect circles expanding outward until they meet other circles, their intersections forming complex patterns of overlapping arcs that no mathematician could fully describe. Near the waterfront, where the city meets Tokyo Bay, the scale of reflection expands dramatically. Here, the entire skyline is mirrored in the larger canvas of the bay itself, the water's surface disturbed only slightly by the gentle rain, creating a softened, impressionistic version of the city's light-filled profile. The Rainbow Bridge, with its multicolored illumination, creates twin arcs of light, one physical, one reflected, that together form an almost perfect oval, a gateway between worlds. A night fishing boat moves slowly across this scene, its navigation lights creating long, wavering lines across the water's surface as it passes. The boat's wake expands behind it, temporarily erasing portions of the reflected city before the water settles again, the urban image gradually reforming like a memory, returning after momentary distraction. In a small neighborhood park, the rain has collected in a children's wading pool, now empty of its daytime occupants. This perfectly still body of water creates the most perfect mirror of all, reflecting with photographic precision the surrounding trees, the distant buildings, and the cloud-covered sky above. A leaf falls from an overhanging branch, landing on this surface with barely a sound, creating concentric ripples that slowly transform the perfect image into abstract patterns before gradually settling back into stillness. As we stand observing these countless reflections, some fleeting, some relatively permanent, all in constant subtle motion due to the continuing rain, we become aware of a curious sensation. The boundary between the real and the reflected begins to blur in our perception. Which is more real, the physical city of concrete and glass, or its liquid counterpart that exists only as light and water? In these quiet hours after midnight, both seem equally valid, equally present, as if Tokyo has always been two cities, one reaching toward the sky, one extending into some beautiful underworld of inverted light. As the night deepens toward the small hours, many of Tokyo's famous neon signs and digital displays have dimmed or shut down entirely, but enough remain illuminated to maintain the city's reputation as a metropolis of light. These remaining signs take on a different character now, less about advertising or attracting customers to businesses long closed for the night, more like constellations guiding our way through the urban cosmos, creating landmarks of luminescence in the gentle darkness. In Akihabara, the electric town famous for its concentration of electronic shops and anime emporia, the massive facades of buildings still glow with oversized characters from popular series, their exaggerated expressions and vivid colors creating a surreal backdrop to the emptied streets. Without the daytime crowds, these towering figures seem to be performing for no one, or perhaps just for each other, an audience of fictional characters watching over the sleeping city with their unchanging expressions of surprise, determination, or joy. The famous Glico Man sign in Osaka might be better known, but Tokyo has its own iconic illuminated figures. The giant robot that stands guard outside a hobby shop in Odaiba remains lit through the night, its mechanical silhouette creating a science fiction sentinel that watches over the artificial island with patient electronic eyes. In the rain, the lights reflecting off its metallic surface create the illusion of movement, as if the massive figure might at any moment step down from its pedestal and wade into the bay. Not all of Tokyo's nighttime signage is so fantastical. In the business districts, corporate logos still shine from the upper floors of office towers, financial institutions, insurance companies, technology firms, their simplified designs and restrained color palettes creating a more subdued light show than the entertainment districts provide. These logos, floating high above the street level, create a secondary skyline of commercial identifiers, a visual reminder of the economic engines that power this vast urban machine. In older neighborhoods, Traditional lanterns still hang outside small establishments, their paper or fabric surfaces creating a diffused, warm glow that feels fundamentally different from the electronic brightness of newer areas. These lanterns often bear the name of the establishment or simply an identifying symbol: a sake cup, a fish, a seasonal flower, painted in elegant calligraphy that connects these modern businesses to traditions centuries old. The convenience stores, those ubiquitous features of Japanese urban life, maintain their bright interior lighting through the night, their illuminated storefronts creating islands of practical brightness in the softer glow of the sleeping city. The familiar logos of 7-Eleven, Lawson, or Family Mart shine as beacons of constant readiness, places where one can find food, drink, or daily necessities at any hour. Through their large windows, we can see the precisely arranged products in their fluorescent clarity, a miniature world of order and availability that never sleeps. Digital billboards, programmed to run through the night, continue their slow transitions between advertisements for products no one is currently shopping for: luxury watches, summer vacations, new automobile models. In these empty hours, these advertisements seem less like commercial persuasion and more like public art installations, their high-resolution images creating temporary murals that color the surrounding architecture with their changing hues. In Yurakucho, beneath the railway arches where dozens of small restaurants and bars are built into the very infrastructure of the transportation system, strings of bare bulbs create a warmer, more intimate lighting scheme. Most of these establishments have closed for the night, but their exterior lighting remains, creating a tunnel of soft illumination that guides occasional late-night workers to the last train or taxi home. The Tokyo Tower maintains its distinctive orange and white lighting pattern, designed to make the structure visible to aircraft, but now serving as the city's most recognizable nocturnal landmark. From certain vantage points, the tower's illumination seems to blend with the stars visible between passing clouds, making it difficult to distinguish where human creation ends and the cosmos begins, a fitting ambiguity for a structure designed to reach toward the heavens. Newer additions to the skyline have their own lighting signatures. The Tokyo Skytree, with its color-changing illumination system, might be displaying its Miyabi purple scheme, or the cool blue Iki pattern, the colors slowly transitioning up the tower's height like a visual melody played at the pace of meditation. These choreographed light displays operate on seasonal schedules, connecting the ultra-modern structure to the traditional Japanese awareness of time's passage through natural cycles. Even traffic signals continue their patient rhythm, changing from green to red to amber and back again at intersections where no vehicles wait. Their colored light spills onto the wet pavement, creating pools of momentary illumination that expand and contract with each change. There is something poignant about these signals faithfully performing their function in the absence of those they are designed to guide, like musicians playing to an empty concert hall, maintaining perfect timing regardless of audience. As we move through this landscape of varied illumination, we become increasingly sensitive to the qualities of different light sources, the harshness of LED, the warmth of incandescent, the flatness of fluorescent, the depth of neon. Each creates its own atmosphere, its own emotional register in the visual composition of the night city. Together, they form a complex symphony of light that plays continuously through the darkness, a counterpoint to the gentle percussion of rain that has become our constant companion on this midnight journey. Section 7. Hidden Alleys and Secret Corners. Away from the main thoroughfares and famous districts, Tokyo reveals another face in its countless narrow alleys and forgotten corners. These spaces, often overlooked during daylight hours when attention is drawn to more prominent attractions, come into their own in the deep night, offering glimpses into the city's more intimate character, its smaller-scale stories written in weathered wood, rusted metal, and the patina of decades or even centuries of continuous habitation. In Yanaka, one of the few districts to survive the bombings of World War II and the Great Kanto earthquake before that, the narrow lanes wind between traditional wooden houses with tiled roofs and small gardens glimpsed through bamboo fences. The rain falls more softly here, it seems, muffled by the close buildings and abundant plant life. Water collects on the leaves of potted plants that stand outside many doorways, miniature forests of carefully tended greenery that soften the boundary between inside and outside, between private and public space. A stone lantern stands at a small intersection where 5 alleys meet like spokes of a wheel. Its light, electric now though designed to mimic the flame of its original form, creates a pool of warm illumination that barely reaches the walls of the surrounding buildings. In this gentle light, the texture of the aged wood siding becomes more pronounced, each groove and grain telling the story of years past, of seasonal expansions and contractions, of the living nature of this seemingly inanimate material. In Kagurazaka, once a geisha district and still home to many traditional restaurants hidden behind unassuming facades, the cobblestone slopes create natural channels for the rainwater, which flows in miniature rivers toward the main street below. The stones themselves, polished by decades of footsteps, gleam in the subtle light that spills from occasional windows or security lamps, their wet surfaces creating a mosaic of dark and light that shifts with our perspective as we move. A wooden door, its surface weathered to a silver gray that no paint could perfectly reproduce, stands slightly ajar in one alley. Beyond it, a glimpse of a tiny courtyard where a single maple tree grows, its leaves occasionally releasing collected raindrops that fall with soft, irregular plops onto the stone below. No light shows from within the building that surrounds this courtyard, its occupants long asleep or perhaps away, but the space itself seems to hold a quiet wakefulness, as if the very walls and tree have developed their own form of consciousness through years of witnessing human lives unfold within their embrace. In Shimokitazawa, known for its bohemian atmosphere and second-hand shops, the narrow passages between buildings reveal unexpected street art. Murals painted on the sides of buildings, small sculptures mounted in niches, mosaics embedded in walls. In the daytime, these might register as bright splashes of creativity, but at night, especially in the rain, they take on a more mysterious quality, their colors muted and their forms partially obscured, requiring closer attention to fully appreciate. A cat appears at the end of one such alley, its eyes reflecting the distant light like twin moons. It regards us with that particular feline blend of indifference and curiosity before turning to continue its own nocturnal explorations, padding silently across the wet pavement with perfect confidence in its path through the darkness. We might wonder what the city looks like from its perspective, a landscape navigated by scent as much as sight, a territory mapped by instinct and memory rather than street signs and addresses. In the older part of Shinjuku, not far from the modern skyscrapers but seemingly centuries away in atmosphere, a network of alleyways houses dozens of tiny bars and eateries, many with just a handful of seats. Most are closed at this hour, their wooden shutters or metal grills pulled down, but a few still show signs of life, a lantern still lit, the sound of quiet conversation, or soft music seeping through a door left slightly open to the night air. Outside one such establishment, a collection of empty bottles stands in neat rows awaiting morning collection. Sake bottles, shochu bottles, beer bottles, each with its own distinctive shape and label, now unified by their emptiness and the gleam of rainwater on their surfaces. They stand as evidence of the evening's gentle revelry, now concluded as the deepest part of night settles over the city.